Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over the market. Pretty somewhat of a wild day, I guess we can say. So we're gonna go over what happened, what we can expect moving forward from here. And as usual, if you guys enjoyed these videos, find them useful, helpful, informative, whatever, don't forget to hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. It does help quite a lot. And of course, as usual, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Do your own research, make your own decisions, all of that good stuff. The market is closing in just about 4 minutes, and it looks like Tesla will be closing somewhere around this level right here, which is going to be just around 182, if not maybe just under 182, which is going to be putting us down just over 3%. So what does this mean? Is this bad? Is it over? Is the bear trend confirmed, or what's going on? Is there any hope for the bulls still to get a rally from here back to, let's say, above 200? We're gonna go over all that. So yeah, so as you can see, I mean, the day is a pretty red day and another overall green, or more or less a green day for the market. One thing I don't like how weak the VIX looks right now. This doesn't really mean that much for Tesla necessarily, because the VIX is not like just specifically for Tesla or anything like that. But yeah, I just don't like how the VIX is just feels so weak. It's just really strange that the VIX is this low. Like I would expect the VIX to, like, at the very bare minimum, be in the 20s. The fact that it's below 20 is very strange. But nonetheless, moving back to Tesla. So you can see on the 1 hour chart, right? We obviously opened up, gap down, and then we went up. Tried to even gap fill, but we couldn't even get up to the gap fill. We got pretty close to it, but we couldn't really get to it. And then we just got straight rejection off of that, and we pretty much after that just went sideways in this throughout this day in this little zone that I talked about over here between 182 and pretty much 180. We pretty much actually tapped like 180 on the dot. I think we went like pretty much exactly on the dot at 180. Let me double check that. Yeah, it looks like we pretty much went exactly on the dot at 180 right here. Yeah, pretty much exactly 180. Perfect, perfection. So a lot of buy orders clearly were placed at $180 per share. Now, we did talk about this yesterday, right? We talked about how, there is a chance that we get a little something, but regardless of what happens, like I am still, personally bearish, and how I personally believe that, this 180 kind of, 6 to 190 level was really important, but like the absolute last, line of defense was this 180 level, and that's, I did talk about that, and how if we break below 180, then to me that pretty much confirms that we are going to be coming down to at least like the 160s probably, if not obviously all the way down to the 145-ish gap level, right? But and we did talk about this several times, how this 180 level is extremely important, like literally the last line of defense, at least in my opinion. That's the way I view it. Doesn't mean it has to be, maybe I'm wrong, but I view it as being the literal last line of defense for the bulls to hold. Even then, even just getting here is already pretty bad and pretty bearish in all honesty, but there is still a sign of hope. There is still some sign of life here, so keep that in mind, guys. Now, with that being said, I do actually believe that there is a pretty okay chance of us getting a bit of a rally here. Now, I don't think it'll be a major rally, but I do think that there is a pretty okay chance that we do bounce off of this 180 level. We just barely hold it. Might have a sneeze coming up very soon, so apologies. There we go, excuse me. The fact that we held this 180, which again, like I said, is extremely important to hold, like literally the, thin ice, but still something, still has some substance. The fact that we held it though, and we are bouncing off of it clearly, at least for now, tells me that, after such, decent red, because we had a, decent amount of red for Tesla in the past just 3 days alone, right? Just in the last 3 days, Tesla went from the peak of this day right here, which was about almost 200, all the way down. So let's say the very bottom was 9%. I mean, not crazy, I guess, for Tesla, but even then 9% in 3 days is still, for at least a normal stock, a fair amount, right? So, the fact that we held 180 to me tells me that there is you can definitely make an argument that we can get a bit of a rally here. I can't imagine it being anything too wild. I mean, honestly, I'll be surprised if it's anything more than like up to 190. Like, I think we can go up to 190. Or at the very least, this gap fill, between this gap fill to 190, right? Pretty much, retesting this overall breakdown from here, right? This kind of level over here that, we kept getting support on. We got a rejection here, but I essentially expect it to come up as high as essentially like 190-ish. But, again, it could be as low as 187. But I would not be surprised to get a bit of a rally from here. Maybe a little bit of consolidation, tiny bit, but ultimately, I do still strongly believe that even if we were to do something like this, it will most likely do something like this, right? I do strongly believe this is still going to be, the movement that'll happen essentially moving forward. Another thing that you can argue that's pretty bearish for Tesla, to essentially retest this, is essentially we are doing a rounding top. And now, if you're not aware what a rounding top is, I'm actually going to remove these arrows because I actually think they're pretty irrelevant now. And I think these are actually overall irrelevant now as well. So I'm going to remove all those because I think that gameplay, if you will, of it, is done, right? Now, we are essentially doing a rounding top, right? Which you can argue is, somewhere around like this, right? This is essentially a rounding top. Now, if you don't know what a rounding top is, I'll quickly Google it for you guys so you can see. But essentially, it's like kind of like a reverse cup and handle, sort of, right? Where I guess I'll do this one here, right? Where it's kind of like a reverse cup and handle, sort of, where you have, this is kind of a weird example. I mean, I guess something like this, maybe, right? This is, I don't know where this is taking me. That was actually not bad. Okay, well, this is pretty zoomed in. Where essentially you have kind of like an inverse cup and handle, right? Where you have like this, I mean, literally a rounding top, right? Like half a circle, if you will, or oval or whatever, that goes like this, which is essentially what we're having right here. And then you have the neckline support, which you can make an argument that the neckline support for this is 190. You can also make the argument that the neckline support for this is actually this 187-ish level. But regardless, in my opinion, overall, the neckline, we'll just, to make it simple, is between this 190 to 187-ish level. Very, very important level, which is why that was one of the major levels I did talk about, how it's arguably the most important level, with 180 being kind of, the level after that, where it's like the true confirmation, but breaking below this 187 to 190 level is already pretty damn bad, right? And that's what we did discuss several times before. So the fact that we broke below it, to me, wouldn't be surprising if we come up to essentially retest this neckline of this rounding top breakdown to the downside, which again would pretty much bring us up to around this level-ish. Again, could be as low as 187, could be as high as maybe just barely above 190, maybe 191, maybe even 192. But like, I can't imagine it being much higher than that. And if it does, then it actually would essentially take this bearish thesis that's very much seemingly looking like it wants to play out, and potentially throw it out the window, honestly. If we, of course, get back above, I would say 192 and really start holding above 192. So instead of Tesla doing this, if it instead like does this and then kind of holds and doesn't like break below, then it could potentially do something like this and go higher, go up to 200 or whatever, right? I don't see that happening. I do think that's a pretty low probability, but overall, I would personally expect a move like this to happen, right? So we have a rounding top. We did break down. You can argue that this is a triple top right here as well, which again, I've talked about this several times. We've had a very similar price action before with Tesla, which was up here. Now, granted, this was a much longer consolidation, but very similar action where we had a triple top similar to what we have right now. So if I kind of do a 4-hour chart, let's say, you can see kind of better, and I zoom out. Let me remove this rounding top thing for now. You get the idea, right? Very similar idea, right? It's just kind of like a mini version of it. It's like half the duration or something like that. But the principle and the idea is extremely similar as to what we had here and as to what we are currently getting right here. Just a technical pattern. It's all that is. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to play out this astronomically to the downside. It can. I don't think it will. But regardless of how like astronomically to the downside it does go down, I do believe that, or won't go down. I do believe it will go down regardless. It's just, maybe it's going to be this much, maybe it won't be this much. But again, I talked about where I personally expect it to go. So the point is the fact that it is a bearish pattern. It is quite bearish that it happened. It is quite bearish that we are seemingly actually following through. So far, it seems like the bears are like, I would say, man, I have like maybe at least like an 85 to 90% control of this situation right now. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. That is very, very important to consider. So that's more or less what I am seeing as of right now. But if you're wondering, where do I see it going, what do I see happening, etc., pretty much what I do expect to happen is, assuming that this actually does play out, which it really seems like it's like a 90% chance it will play out. Again, the last level of defense, the last line of defense is this 180 level. Again, also wouldn't be surprised to come up to almost 190, maybe even like for the next 2 days or something like that, maybe just tomorrow, we'll see. And then most likely get a rejection and then most likely continue down the follow through, right? So essentially, we talked about this before actually, where I said how I personally wouldn't be surprised if it goes something like this, which is kind of what I expect to happen, which I think is going to happen. The RSI on the daily still looks quite damn bearish, I'm not gonna lie, but regardless, once this does play out, and I do think it will, and it's looking very likely, I do think we'll come down to around 162 as low as 145, and that's assuming the bullish thesis holds. And I talked about that several times in the previous videos. If you want to see more about that, you can check those out. I don't want to get into that right now too much because I've talked about it so much. I'll go into it again maybe like tomorrow or the day after. Every few days I'll rediscuss it in case there's new viewers, but ultimately that's more or less what I expect, right? The 1 hour is still looking pretty weak, the 2 hours looking weak, the 4 hour, the 3 hour, the daily, it's all looking quite atrocious. The weekly, on the other hand, is actually actually not looking too atrocious. The weekly, on the other hand, is actually looking, you know, not too bad, not too bad. I wouldn't say it's bullish, but I definitely wouldn't say it's necessarily bearish either, ultimately, other than like, you know, short-term movement. But to me, you know, like I said, I personally believe Tesla has a pretty damn good chance of actually reversing this bear trend that we were in for the kind of short to even medium term, based on, you know, it breaking above 200. And as long as, again, this level down here holds around 160 to 145, I do think that Tesla's looking more bullish than bearish after this retracement is finished, and it holds especially in this area. So that's what I'm seeing. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.